This meeting is now called to order at 10:02 a.m. For those around the table, please turn on your microphone when speaking. For those participating via Zoom, please state your name when making a comment or asking a question. We will now begin the meeting with a roll call of all members.
Thank you, Chair Wilcox. I will go down the list alphabetically by organization. Please indicate if you are present. Ted Wolf as proxy for Shane Kiso, Apache Junction.
Present.
Thank you. Audra Merrick, ADOT. Raj Thowdam, Avondale. John Willett, Buckeye.
Present.
Thank you. CJ DiMaggio, Carefree.
Present.
Thank you. Hal Marin, Cave Creek.
Present.
Thank you. Jason Crampton, Chandler.
Here.
Thank you. Jorge Gaslam, El Mirage.
Present.
Thank you. Andy Smith, Florence. David Janover, Fountain Hills.
Present and accounted for. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Hafner, Gilbert.
Here.
Thank you. Parab Adabala, Glendale.
Here.
Thank you. Steve Skinto, Goodyear.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Cassandra Gomez, Guadalupe.
Present.
Thank you. Keith Drenaski, Litchfield Park. Keith Brown, Maricopa. Chair Wilcox.
This is Munir Saman from City of Maricopa.
Thank you.
Chair Wilcox is present.
Thank you. Erica Darian, Mesa.
Here.
Thank you. Shar Johnson, Paradise Valley.
I'm here. Thank you.
Brianna Velez, Phoenix.
Present.
Thank you. Christopher Wanamaker, Muhammad Yusuf, Queen Creek.
Here.
Thank you. Nathan Domi, Scottsdale.
Here.
Thank you. Kieran Guntapali as proxy for Eric Boyles, Surprise.
Present.
Thank you. Shelley Seiler, Tempe.
Present.
Thank you. Chris Hamilton, Tolleson.
Present.
Thank you. Trevor Cullen, Valley Metro. Herschel Workman, Wickenburg. And Grant Anderson, Youngtown.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, we have quorum.
Thank you. Our next item is call to the audience. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda, informational items, or items on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience unless the chair requests an exception to this limit. I have received no requests to speak. MAG also provides the opportunity for members of the public to submit written comments via the MAG website. Any comments received 2 hours prior to the meeting have been shared with the committee members in advance of the meeting for consideration and will be included in the formal meeting minutes. Staff, have we received any online written comments for the call to the audience?
Thank you, Chair. We have received no written comments for the call to the audience.
Thank you. Item number 3 is the MAG staff report. This item is on the agenda for information and will be presented by Patrick Stone, MAG Deputy Transportation Director of Programming.
Thank you, Chair Wilcox, members of the Transportation Review Committee. Quite a few announcements this morning. Next slide, please. Thank you. So first, I want to welcome 2 new members to the Transportation Review Committee. Shane Kiso, Deputy Director of Public Works from the City of Apache Junction. Unfortunately, Shane was unable to join us today, but will certainly in January, as well as Salvador Portillo from the Federal Highway Administration, both appointments made on November 18th. Next slide, please. Wanted to kind of flag something coming up for folks that we're always excited about. The build grant, we did get the initial notice of the 2026 build grant application cycle. This is an unusual one right now in that there's a congressional requirement. They do have to get the build notice out by the end of November. They did that. They did note in the notice that an amendment would be forthcoming with more details. If you do go on the website as noted on the agenda, it's very thin right now. The initial notice is pretty small. One thing you can see is that $1.5 billion is available in funding. It's usually split up $750 million each between rural and urban grants. But as shown on the screen, applications will be due near the end of February, and I'll certainly have an update on this at the January TRC meeting as part of my program manager's report. Next. And finally, kind of wanted to call attention to this group. As you recall, in the past, MAG has worked with our member agency somewhat on EV infrastructure. I wanted to note that the county was the recipient of a $15 million charging and fuel infrastructure grant. So they do have funding available for member agencies to potentially look at EV charging. You can see the website information located on the slide to get more information from the Air Quality Department of the county. Next, I think it's okay. Moving through. Oh, there we go. So revenue forecasts for the recent cycle still trending well. HERF up 1% over the prior year, 0.7% above forecast. Next, please. Yeah, there we go. And then year to date, % above forecast. So everything's looking pretty good on the HERF side. Next, RARF. So month of September, pretty strong collections, 5% higher year over year, just almost 2% above the forecast. Next, please. And then year to date, 1% above forecast. I will note for the chair, members of the committee, every month about the middle of the month, we get a notification from the Department of Revenue of RARF collections for the prior month. We did actually see the first collections for Prop 479 be recorded. I think it's about $138 for people that prepay their taxes. But we have actually seen, so moving forward into next calendar year, we will start seeing additional slides breaking the RARF down between Prop 400 collections and Prop 479. And with that, Chair, that concludes my remarks. Happy to take any questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Patrick. Moving to item number 4, informational items. There are no informational items that are on the agenda today. So we will proceed to agenda item 5, approval of the consent agenda. Items 5A and 5B are included in the consent agenda. Does any member of the committee have any questions or request a presentation of any of these items? Hearing none, prior to approval of the consent agenda, there is an opportunity for members of the public to comment. I have received no requests for this item. Staff, have we received any online written comments for this item?
Thank you, Chair. We have received no online written comments for the consent agenda.
Is there a motion to approve agenda items 5A and 5B?
So moved.
Thank you, Jason.
Second, Dave Janover, Fountain Hills.
Thank you, Dave. We will have those participating in the meeting online take part in a voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. We need to see the faces of everyone to participate in the voice vote. For those who cannot or do not want to turn on their cameras, staff will conduct a roll call vote. Staff will only call on those virtual participants who did not turn on their camera. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote so that staff can count the people's names whose cameras are not on. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call of the members participating virtually who did not turn on their cameras?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nathan Domi, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. We'll move to item number 6, Proposition 400 Arterial Life Cycle Program, Project Change Process Overview. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion and will be presented by Jeremy Basham, MAG Senior Transportation Planner. Jeremy?
Basham. I'm happy to be here today. I am a senior planner at MAG, and today I'll be presenting on the Arterial Life Cycle Program Project Change Request Overview. This presentation will be slightly similar to one that Patrick gave back in September. That presentation was actually on the Proposition 479 project request overview. This presentation is focused on the Proposition 400 request overview. First, to start with some background, all things begin with the Regional Strategic Infrastructure Investment Plan. In 2023, the RSTIP was updated to reflect some changes in Senate Bill 1102, and the RTO Lifecycle Program is an integral component of the RSTIP. The ALCP is a financial management tool for the arterial component of the RSTIP. It is guided by the ALCP policies and procedures that are developed by the ALCP Working Group and approved by Regional Council. And in the lifetime of the Proposition 400 ALCP, 102 ALCP projects or project segments have been completed as of the end of fiscal year 2025. Now for the project change process itself, it is outlined in Section 220 of the ALCP policies and procedures. This covers the project modification process and outlines the process for member agencies to submit scope changes, or as you will see later, proposing substitute projects to replace ones currently in the ALCP. A requirement of the process is for agencies to use the project change tool and to present the results to the street committee. Now for a quick description of the project change tool itself. Each request is summarized in the project change tool. Member agencies identify the current ALCP project and the proposed project, as well as including the proposed funding changes and a detailed cost estimate. It requires evaluation with the ALCP project change tool. Let me go back. And agencies are required to present the request to street committee. They have to provide an overview, the reason for the change, how it aligns with the policies, and the results from the tool. Now, within the tool, there's the evaluation process itself. And I did want to point out that when comparing the Proposition 479 and the Proposition 400 change process, you'll find the most difference in the evaluation itself. The criteria was changed when we developed the Proposition 479 process. But for Proposition 400 ALCP, there are 9 criteria, 6 quantitative and 3 qualitative. Let me go back, sorry. The criteria was developed by the Arterial Lifecycle Work Group. The qualitative factors will allow member agencies to highlight additional items about the request, and as you can see in the table is a list of criteria. Chair Wilcox, members of the Transportation Review Committee, that concludes my presentation on the overview process for the Proposition 400 Arterial Lifecycle Program. I'm happy to answer any questions before we move on.
Thank you, Jeremy. Do any members have any questions or comments of Jeremy on this agenda item? Very good. Move on to item number 7, update to the Proposition 400 Arterial Lifecycle Program. This item is on the agenda for action and will also be presented by Jeremy Basham, MEG Senior Transportation Planner.
Thank you, Chair Wilcox. Again, members of the Transportation Review Committee, I'm Jeremy Basham. And this is really a presentation that the previous agenda item was setting up. This is the proposed mid-year update to the Proposition 400 Arterial Lifecycle Program. As I noted, the Arterial Lifecycle Program is a critical component of the RSTIP, but it's the Arterial Streets component. And then the administration of the ALCP is guided by the ALCP policies and procedures. Now, some key elements of the Proposition 400 ALCP. This first one is critical. As outlined in statute, the program is required to be fiscally constrained. The program is funded by both regional and federal funding, as opposed to the Proposition 479 ALCP. It is a reimbursement-based program, so member agencies would incur costs and then seek reimbursement from us. And then the most recent iteration of the ALCP was approved by Regional Council in June. Now, why are we doing a Proposition 400 mid-year adjustment? There are multiple projects in the current ALCP that are either underway or have not yet begun work that have remaining programmed reimbursements. The sunset of the Proposition 400 ALCP is forthcoming within the next few years as collections end in a few weeks. Therefore, agencies have greater flexibility to propose funding adjustments by either shifting funding or proposing substitute projects to more efficiently use their programmed regional funding to deliver projects within the Proposition 400 ALCP. And a very important note, as required, all proposed adjustments in the following slides are cost neutral. The programmed amounts for each member agency remain the same. We're just flipping around the projects and the funding. Now, the project change tool itself was made available to member agencies on June 26, 2025, right after approval of the fiscal year 26 ALCP. One member agency, Mesa, submitted 4 project adjustment requests by July 15th. And the project change requests were reviewed and recommended for approval by street committee earlier this week. Now for the changes themselves, usually when we update the LCP, we don't go into the detail of each change, but since this is a mid-year adjustment with only 4 requests, we're going to give them some shine. Starting with request number 1. The first request from Mesa includes shifting funding from 5 ALCP projects to an already existing ALCP project. Starting here with a project on Broadway Road from Country Club to Mesa Drive. This project is actually involved in all 4 requests, so you will see this one highlighted in each request, shifting funding to 4 different projects. This is a pavement reconstruction project, and due to funding constraints, it cannot be completed within the Prop 400 timeframe. The next project we are shifting funding from is from Haas Road. Mesa is proposing to delete this project and shift all funding from the roadway widening project due to this project already being mostly completed and being believed to be completed by a private development. It's a similar case with a project on McKillips Road, east of Sossaman Road to Meridian Road, a roadway widening project that is going to be completed by private development, so they're shifting funding off of it. Then finally, we have an intersection improvement project on Dobson Road at University Drive. This project was actually completed back in 2015, so instead of seeking reimbursement, the city is going to take its regional funding and shift it to the other project. And I did want to say there's a 5th project not being listed here on Ellsworth Road that we are taking some programmed project savings from. It's not reflected because it's not required to go through the committee process, but I did want to note it just for information. Now, all 5 of these projects are shifting funding to an already existing ALCP project on Broadway Road from Mesa Drive to Stapley Drive. This project will reconstruct 1.5 miles of Broadway Road and upgrade traffic signals. It's going to include 3 new pedestrian crossings as there is a school and park within the segment. It is a high priority project for the city that connects to the Loop 101 to the west and the Loop 202 to the east. The project is currently under contract to go to construction in January. And I apologize for the small font, but here is the table with the scoring. And that is the first request for Mesa. Mesa's second request involves a 101 shift from one ALCP project to another, so still an existing ALCP project. This again involves Broadway Road, Country Club Drive to Mesa Drive. So Mesa is proposing to shift funding from this pavement reconstruction project to a project on Val Vista Drive from the US 60 to Pueblo. This is a roadway widening project. It will construct a full build out of the Val Vista and Southern intersection to improve safety and capacity. It's a high priority project with direct access to the US 60 and Loop 202 that is already under construction and is currently scheduled to be completed in September of next year. And again, here's the scoring results. All right, so Mesa's third request involves shifting funding from 3 ALCP projects to another existing ALCP project. Starting again with our old friend Broadway Road from Country Club to Mesa Drive, we're going to be shifting funding from this roadway reconstruction project. We're also going to be shifting funding from the Stapley Drive at University Drive intersection improvements project, which has insufficient funding due to inflation and will no longer be completed within the Prop 400 ALCP. And then finally, we're taking money from the Sossaman Road Velocity Weighted Germain Road widening project, which also cannot be completed within the Prop 400 ALCP. Then this request would shift funding from all 3 of these projects to a project on Ellsworth Road from Germain Road to Ray Road. This project would widen the roadway from 4 to 6 lanes and is a high priority project with direct access to State Route 24 and is already under construction with completion expected in January of 2027. And again, here's the scoring results for the change request. Now for Mesa's 4th and final request, this involves shifting funding from 3 projects to actually a new project to the ALCP being substituted in. Mesa is again requesting to shift funding from Broadway Road, Country Club Drive to Mesa Drive pavement reconstruction project. This request would also delete and shift funding from a roadway widening project on Elliott Road from Power Road to Eastern Maricopa Floodway. The project has already been mostly completed by private development. And again, there is a third project that's not being that we are shifting some programmed project savings to the new project. So these 3 projects would fund a newly proposed ALCP substitute project on Country Club Drive from US 60 to Southern Avenue. This proposed project would reconstruct pavement, add new LED lighting and ITS enhancements, and install raised medians to control access. This segment is a high crash corridor for the city. So the project is focused on improving safety and reducing conflict points. This segment of Country Club Drive acts as a critical feeder to the US 60 as it's right off the freeway. And here's the scoring, including the new proposed LCP project. And with that, Chair Wilcox, members of the Transportation Review Committee, that concludes my presentation. As you can see, the requested action for this agenda item is to recommend approval of the project changes to the fiscal year 2026 Proposition 400 RTO Lifecycle Program. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeremy. Do any members have any questions or comments of Jeremy on this agenda item?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Patrick, is it a requirement of ALCP projects they have to increase capacity? And I'm wondering if that last project on Country Club does increase capacity or not.
Thank you, Chair Wilcox, members of the Transportation Review Committee, Vice Chair Crampton. There's not a specific requirement of capacity. If you recall, it's kind of an interesting artifact of the Prop 400 ALCP. We had different types of projects. So we had not only what you saw as widening projects, we also had intersection improvement projects. There was a whole subset of categories. We did review the policies, reviewed the scope, checked internally, and felt confident that it fell within the guidelines of the policies and procedures.
So for Prop 479 moving forward, that there is a requirement for increasing capacity with those projects? Or I just recall as we developed that seems to be the underlying requirement with everything we discussed.
Well, as Jeremy alluded, thank you, Chair Wilcox, again, Vice Chair Crampton, as Jeremy alluded to in the presentation, I think one thing, especially with this project, what they're really looking at, I believe, as I recall correctly, Sabina had mentioned, this is one of like their second busiest roadway in the city of Mesa. So by reducing those conflict points, they are actually going to improve capacity by reducing congestion. So this is really, they're looking at mitigating congestion. To your 479 question, and as you'll see, hopefully coming up maybe sometime next year, the ALCP kind of got bifurcated. And so you see more of a focus on those widening capacity projects in the actual ALCP itself and the creation of a new arterial intersection program. So we sort of split that out in the RSTIP. But yeah, good questions. But yes, we do think that based on what they're actually looking to do here, that it does fit within the requirements of the project.
Okay, thanks for that. It's just interesting because we've got a project, Prop 479 ALCP in Chandler, that I think could really benefit from safety improvements and those type of improvements that wouldn't necessarily add lanes. So I'm just kind of wondering if this is where we're going, thing that where we're heading for other projects in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wilcox, members of the TRC, Vice Chair Crampton. I would say if you do have a specific project request where you're like, hey, we'd love to talk about the scope of this project and what we see as its benefits and get some feedback, we can certainly have that conversation offline and talk about the project.
And then, sorry, I did have one more question. Sorry to dominate this, but can you remind me what's the deadline for being somewhere along the process in design or whatever for Prop 400 funds? And then question to Mesa, do you feel confident in meeting that deadline and having these projects ready?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wilcox, members of the TRC, Vice Chair Crampton. One thing, and as Jeremy went through the presentation, hopefully you picked that up. The requirement in the policies is you have to be at 60% design by June 30th of 2026, are either in construction or will be going to construction in the next couple months. And I think really credit to the city, a realization that they had more priority projects that obviously, as we've seen across the region, had fiscal constraints and such. They really looked to leverage their ALCP into cost-effective projects where they could get the most value. So from a policy perspective, all of their projects met the requirements, and in a way, actually, it relieves some stress of myself and Jeremy, in that we now had a good path forward to use those funds well within the time frame constraints of the ALCP itself. But yeah, great question.
Thank you.
Are there any other members who have any questions or comments on this agenda item?
Yes,
Chairman,
Mohammed.
this is Andy Smith with the town of Florence.
Mohammed, can you go first, please?
Oh.
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Is any way we can reconsider Signal Butte improvement? That is the third project is very close to one. The scoring is 0.8, and that will contribute significantly, not only to City of Mesa, but for the town of Queen Creek and Pinal County, given that we are widening State Route 24 and more traffic will go on it, and with no additional improvement on Signal Butte, I mean on Ironwood, then Signal Butte becomes very important corridor to handle the extra traffic.
I'll take this one. Thank you, Chair Wilcox, members of the TRC, Mohammed. Tyler, could you real quick move that thing up at that? Thank you. So one thing to kind of flag for this one, the Signal Butte project and the funding that we're pulling off that are actually savings in the ALCP. So we're not deleting a Signal Butte project. These were just amounts Mesa had left over from the initial project they did. And so the city's priority then was to address those concerns on Country Club. But this wasn't actually, Mohammed, removing a project from the program. It was just taking, and hence why and I credit to Jeremy, I really like how he did the slide deck. The ones you see on the screen are the ones requiring committee action. He was just flagging that they're taking funding from an additional project that had savings to shift over to Country Club.
Okay, thank you.
Andy?
Yeah, mine's more of a question of protocol. We are not eligible for ALCP or this arterial life cycle. Do we vote?
Thank you, Chair Wilcox, members of the Transportation Review Committee. Mr. Smith, as a member of the committee, yes, you would be expected to vote on this item because you serve on the committee. You don't have any projects in here, obviously, that have impact on this, but yeah, as a member of committee, we would expect to get your reflection on the action.
10-4. Thanks.
Prior to voting, there is an opportunity for members of the public to comment. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, Eric has his hand.
Oh, Eric, I'm sorry. Please move. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just really quickly, I just want to say thank you to MAG staff, working with our staff to get all this work done. I know it was a lot over the last 6 months, and just appreciate the teamwork and the hard work that was done.
Thank you, Eric. And again, I apologize for overlooking your hand up.
No worries. I think I popped it up and down multiple times. So
Okay, very good. Do any other members have any questions or comments on this agenda item? Hearing none, prior to voting, there is an opportunity for members of the public to comment. I have received no requests for this agenda item. Staff, have we received any online written comments for this agenda item?
Thank you, Chair. We have received no online written comments for this agenda item.
Is there a motion to recommend approval of the project changes to the FY 2026 Proposition 400 Arterial Life Cycle Program?
So move, Mohammed Yusuf, Town of Queen Creek.
Thank you,
Second.
Mohammed.
Second,
Second from whom?
Eric, City of Mesa.
Thank you, Eric. We will have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call vote of the members participating virtually who did not turn on their cameras?
Jay DiMaggio, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion passes.
Very good. Move on to item number 8, Federal Highway Administration funding, Federal Fiscal Year 2026 closeout. This item is on the agenda for action and will be presented by Patrick Stone, MAG Deputy Transportation.
Again, good morning. Thank you, Chair Wilcox, members of the Transportation Review Committee. Pleasure to be here today to present the Federal Fiscal Year 2026 closeout item. As all things we do, we always like kind of talk about where the concept of closeout comes from. In this case, it's the regional programming guidelines. Guidelines were approved earlier this year at MAG Regional Council in June. Within the guidelines, and specifically Section 480, it details the project redistribution process, or what we call closeout. And really what it does, it highlights Transportation Reviews Committee role in this process. It really, it's kind of prioritizing those requests and then also reviewing and commenting on a proposed and recommended funding scenario. I think it is always interesting. People, we sometimes don't talk about this because in previous years we've been quite fortunate that we've always been able to fund all the requests that come in, but we do actually have a project prioritization process that we do identify in the policies, which really identifies how we prioritize what we do. And usually it's on the basis of we advance projects from a future year into current year. Those get first precedence. And then we look at taking care of shortfalls on existing projects before we move any further. So for fiscal year 2026, the memo went out in early October on the 6th to member agency committee, copy to all of the relevant and appropriate technical committees with requests due on November 13th. A little pivot here. In the memo, it identified $25 million in funding. So we said we have $25 million available. Subsequent to that memo being going out and then getting the requests in, we did identify some additional project deferrals that came into the program. And the net result was we had an additional just over $11 million available in closeout. So we're sitting at $36.3 million. So what kinds of requests, as I noted before, we usually advance future construction, then look at current and prior year increases. If we do get requests, and you'll see in a slide, we did not. For those projects that are already federally funded in the program, in the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program, if a member agency had a federally funded construction project, they could come back and request to have their design and or right-of-way phases federally funded. And then finally, as we've done in preceding years, opportunities that were not recommended for funding as part of the 2026 street sweeper process, which just completed last week at Regional Council, they can submit those requests to have those considered as well. On the screen, you can see the request. Apologies, a little bit small. We do have numerous categories, even though this year we only had requests in 3 specific categories. A lot of it, and no surprises, we've seen across the region and for these last few years, lion's share of the request is in cost increases, either for projects programmed in 2026, or we have member agencies that have projects that were funded in a prior year that they still need additional funding. One thing to note, you'll see at the bottom, we do have a substantial number of requests for sweepers. Since I've been at MAG, this was, I think, our largest year for requests for sweepers, but thankfully we had the ability to potentially cover those requests as well. So when we talk about the funding, how do we get to the numbers that we come up with? So really what we do is it's a simple math calculation. We identify how much funding the region has for 2026, in this case, just over $162 million. We then go through the TIP, look at the projects programmed in 2026, and then we arrive at what we think the closeout number is. As you can see, if we take out the proposed closeout funding scenario of $33.6 million, just over $7 million left. An astute observer would notice that is not the number I had on the preceding slide. Since we sent out the information summary, we did get some closeout request notifications back from ADOT where they've released funding back to the region this fiscal year. So we have a little bit of additional funding. So at this point, we're saying at about 7.2 million, noted there as to how that number switched just a little bit. And one thing to flag, and no guarantees, but there is always the potentiality that that unused balance could be considered in a subsequent closeout cycle. If you'll recall correctly, a few years past, we actually did 2 additional closeout cycles. We had sufficient funding, and we had certainly an abundance of needs. Not saying we'll do it this cycle, but always a possibility. And with that, Chair Wilcox, members of the Transportation Review Committee, concludes my presentation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Patrick. Do any members have any questions or comments on this agenda item? Hearing none. Prior to voting, there is an opportunity for members of the public to comment.
Mr. Chair, there's a question from Mr. Hafner.
Oh, Mr. Hafner, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Patrick, if MAG does choose to do a subsequent call for that 7.2 of excess funds, do you know when that decision will be made and how that will happen? I think I've communicated with you that we 2 weeks after the closing time, we found out that one of our eligible projects came in 700,000 over the state's estimate through ADOT. And we would love to cover that with closeout funds.
Thank you, Chair Wilcox, members of the Transportation Review Committee. Mr. Hafner, I'm envisioning, once we get through the process here, I'll be working with my staff over the next week or so and identifying and kind of shoring up what we project the balance of funding for the rest of the year, working with member agencies to confirm if they have any additional project deferrals. If we did a call for a subsequent closeout, I would envision it going early in calendar year 26 with a very tight time frame. So obviously, because we have to go through a full committee process, we'd want to get it as soon as possible, to give member agencies the opportunity to secure any needed matching funds, plus time to get those requests through our partners at ADOT. But yeah, I would see something early in calendar 26 if we have that.
Thank you, Patrick. Based on whatever decision you guys make, please keep me in the loop on that.
Will do, sir.
Do any other members have any questions or comments on this agenda item?
I would just like to suggest maybe next time when Patrick gives his presentation right around Christmas time, he wears a red and white hat.
Thank you, Chair Wilcox. Words of TRC, Vice Mayor Trampkin. I'll take the suggestion to cover my shiny head with a suitable festive garb.
As long as it's the Santa and not the Grinch.
Well noted, sir.
Very good. Prior to voting, there's an opportunity for members of the public to comment. I have received no requests for this agenda item. Staff, have we received any online written comments for this agenda item?
Thank you, Chair. We have received no online written comments for this agenda item.
Is there a motion to recommend approval of the proposed closeout funding scenario and associated amendment to the MAG fiscal year 2026 to 2030 Transportation Improvement Program, the Regional Strategic Transportation Infrastructure Investment Plan, and the Momentum 2050 update?
I'll move to recommend approval.
Thank you, Jason.
Second.
Thank you. We will have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call vote of the members participating virtually who did not turn on their camera?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Everyone had their cameras on and the motion passes.
Very good. Thank you. We'll proceed to item number 9, fiscal year 2026 to 2030 Transportation Improvement Program. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion and will be presented by Kay Bork, MAG Principal Planner.
Thank you, Chair Wilcox and members of Transportation Review Committee. I'm very pleased to be here today to present an overview and update on the MAG Regional Active Transportation Plan. This plan is intended to help shape how our communities invest in walking, biking, and other forms of active transportation across the region. So before getting into the study, I wanted to provide a brief definition. Active transportation simply means getting from place to place using human power. That's most commonly walking and biking. Supporting active transportation requires safe and connected infrastructure, such as sidewalk networks, on-street bike facilities, multi-use paths, and safe and accessible crossings. Active transportation doesn't only connect people to neighborhoods and destinations, it also brings a regional benefit, including reduced traffic congestion, improving air quality, and supporting public health with physical activity opportunities. So the purpose of this study is to identify active transportation needs and priorities to help guide investment decisions under the RSTIP. The RSTIP dedicates $800 million over the next 20 years, specifically for active transportation. The active transportation plan is implementation focused, using data and analysis to evaluate system performance and prioritize projects. And ultimately, this plan will provide the technical basis to move policy into on-the-ground transportation improvements. So this effort is structured around 4 objectives. First, we're assessing the existing network, getting a clear picture of where our walking and biking system works well and where there are gaps. The goal is to identify key needs and opportunities to strengthen the overall system. Second, we're identifying and prioritizing needs, so we'll know which active transportation improvements are most critical, both regionally and locally. The goal is to ensure both regional and community needs are addressed. Third, we'll recommend funding programs that direct dollars to projects with the greatest impact on safety, connectivity, and regional and community benefit. And the goal here is to ensure that investments deliver the greatest benefit. And finally, we'll be tracking progress through the development of a performance metrics framework and a public dashboard that lets MAG, member agencies, and the public see how investments are delivering results over time. And together, these objectives ensure the plan moves from vision to actual measurable outcomes. So the project boundary includes the MAG regional planning area covering all of Maricopa County and Pinal County as shown on the map. And then a key part of this study is work with our technical advisory group. The TAG brings together staff from 18 member agencies, as well as MAG staff from our safety, data, and programming divisions. The TAG meets regularly to help guide the study, collaborate on public engagement, shape tasks and review deliverables, and provide technical expertise and local insight. So here is an overview of the project schedule. We're about 10 months into this 18-month study. Our effort officially kicked off in February, and so far we've held 4 technical advisory committee meetings. Right now we've wrapped up the first round of public engagement that included in promoting an online interactive comment map and survey, as well as attending several community events with tabling and public engagement opportunities. That phase 1 public report is complete and posted on our project website. And we'll continue to engage the public throughout the study process, both in person and virtually. On the technical side, moving to task 3 and 4, 5, and 6, we'll be completing the existing conditions analysis. It's just about complete. And we're in the process of finalizing the vision, goals, and objectives. Looking forward, we'll be developing those project prioritization recommendations. We'll be shaping the funding programs, establishing performance metrics, and then drafting those implementation strategies. And so all of this work will come together in the Regional Active Transportation Plan, which we'll present to Regional Council in August of 2026. That concludes my presentation. There is a QR code for the project website if you want to look at that, and happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. Do any members have any questions or comments on this agenda item?
Sure.
Jason?
Hey, Kay, great presentation and great job with this process. I'm hearing good things. You mentioned that the plan is going to identify important regional and local projects or corridors. I'm wondering how you're going about identifying the local projects. Are you reaching out to communities, like getting information from their transportation plans, and is that feeding into this, or is there another way you guys are looking at it?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Chair Wilcox, members of TRC. Yes, we are going to be working with the member agencies on identifying those plans from your long-range transportation plans. And that's kind of the next step. Right now, we're in the process of identifying those regional projects that are like crossing highways and things like that. And then we're going to move into those more regional, sub-regional, and local. Or sorry, sub-regional and local. But yes, thank you for that.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Do any other members have any questions or comments? Thank you, Kay.
This is Hal Marin from town of Cave Creek.
Please go ahead.
We have one of the largest trail systems in the county. are trails and other type of mobility activity being considered by this committee?
Thank you for your question, Chair Wilcox. Yes, if these are multi-use paths, canal paths, if they're recreational trails, they probably will just be looking at making sure we provide connectivity to those recreational trails, but we are looking at multi-use paths.
Yeah, I would hope that you would reach out to our trail coordinator here in town as to get that information into the committee's work.
Thank you. We will do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the membership? Hearing none, thank you, Kay.
Thank you.
We'll now progress to item number 10, update on development of the Proposition 479 Transit Lifecycle Program. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion and will be presented by Cole Brown, May Transportation Policy and Initiatives, or Transportation Planner. Cole?
Thank you, Chair Wilcox, members of the Transportation Review Committee. Today, just wanted to provide a brief update. I'm going to go relatively quickly since this is limited time, but just a brief update on the development of the Prop 479 TLCP, or Transit Lifecycle Program. This is the program by which the region makes investments into transit. Brief outline of the presentation, starting with an overview. What is the TLCP? The history that I guess guided the policymakers to design the TLCP's elements in the RSTIP. Moving through a quick development update, an overview of what has been developed so far and what we're moving to develop in the near future, as well as a quick update on next steps. As I mentioned earlier, the Transit Lifecycle Program, or the TLCP, is the management tool for transit investments within the RSTIP for Prop 479. It's implemented by Valley Metro and local agencies, but in Prop 479, it'll be managed by MAG. The Prop 479 TLCP represents a major policy shift from the existing Prop 400 TLCP. The Prop 400 model allocates regional funding for bus transit to member agencies at a fixed proportionality set in on a previous date. The Prop 479 TLCP considers a multifaceted framework around a formula-based approach for distributing bus operations funds. So just to take a step back and give you a brief overview of the history of the RSTIP policies for the TLCP. The 2003 RTP, which was the basis for Prop 400, initially took a long-range plan-based approach with regional funding identified for regional bus operations, as well as bus capital and rail capital investments. Prior to the Prop 400, transit service varied greatly throughout the region, due in large part to unevenness in local funding from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. The RTP sought to remedy this by committing regional funding to a set of key routes, referred to as supergrid routes, across the region. However, the plan-based funding model will prove to be highly vulnerable to external economic conditions. Changes in revenue, costs, demographic changes, and performance trends could cause it to deviate from the original plan assumptions. In 2008, that happened. The Great Recession forced significant service cuts to core routes and made the plan-based funding commitment unable to be met. As a result, the significant cuts caused by the recession forced a shift to the fixed allocation-based funding approach that you may know as JE, or jurisdictional equity. Under this approach, allocations were fixed at a calculated shares for regional fixed route, express, and paratransit bus services. While this model did provide financial stability, its static nature did not allow the region to respond to changes in transit demand, something that you can see on the chart on the left, where you can see that in jurisdictions or the subregions, allocations of funding no longer matched with revenue miles, i.e. service provided, as well as ridership in 2019. There's also an inherent incentivization of locally funded focused service, as if agencies were funded on a basis of a local share rather than according to regional priorities. It is, however, important to emphasize the critical nature of local transit funding for all of transit service in the region. The Prop 479 TLCP is funded through half-cent sales tax and federal funds allocated to the MAG region. However, the sales tax is the only regional funding source available for the use of operating bus transit. The TLCP and its associated funding sources only provide a portion of the funding that makes up the overall transit system. And in fact, if we were to allocate all of the Prop 479 revenues, we would not be able to cover the total expenses of providing bus service in the region. Due to all this information, during development of the RSTIP, policymakers provided direction to consider a new regional funding transit framework that enhances the performance of the region's transit system, allows for flexibility for future changes to respond to evolving market needs, and considers the role of funding sources, which fund a majority of local funding sources, which fund a majority of the region's transit service. The elements of the Prop 479 TLCP is established by Regional Council in the RSTIP include the Bus Operating Assistance Program, which includes a base allocation, formula funding, as well as seed funding. Includes regional services for bus, such as express bus service, mandatory ADA service, and regional services support costs, as well as capital investments in the form of bus purchases, maintenance, as well as regional transit facilities, and finally, a plan-based approach for delivering high-capacity transit projects, such as bus rapid transit, light rail projects, streetcar projects, and improvements to the existing light rail system. So now going to kind of walk you through what we've developed so far with the Prop 479 TLCP working group. The first the most key portion of the Prop 479 TLCP is the Bus Operating Assistance Program, which is funding allocated cyclically to respond to transit demand, market conditions, as well as socioeconomic and demographic changes. The Bus Transit Operating Assistance Program has three key elements, including the base allocation, the formula allocation, and the seed allocation, which are distributed to member agencies on a biennial basis. The first and the base, in other words, of the Prop 479 TLCP bus operating assistance is the base allocation, which is designed to maintain regionally funded fixed route service at Prop 400 levels. This is a result of foundational RSTIP policy conversations intended to function as a funding floor for agencies, and it's intended to maintain the Prop 400 funding levels for agencies based on regional funding that was committed to routes as of the fiscal 19-20 TLCP for fiscal year 2025. And it's important to emphasize that as with all bus operating assistance under Prop 479, funding is decoupled from routes and can be used on any eligible route, any eligible fixed route arterial service within an agency's jurisdiction. The second element of the Bus Operating Assistance Program is the formula allocation, which will allocate funds based on revenue miles, which is meant to represent service levels provided, as well as ridership, which is performance. This calculation is calculated biennially and is provided to agencies based on those performance criteria. There is a 10% set aside within the formula program, which is funding available for circulators. No more than 30% of an agency's circulator costs being funded by the region. However, it is the allocation of that funding available is calculated on the basis of ridership and service miles if we're not able to fund a full 30% for every agency. And finally, the tip of the spear of the Bus Operating Assistance Program is the SEED program, which is a 4-year emerging market program, really just a pilot to provide funding available to agencies to initiate new service into new or emerging markets. It's provided on a 4-year basis with a declining regional commitment every year. Upon completion of the SEED program, a route can be transitioned into the formula funding program. Now I'm going to take a brief second to walk you through the regional services allocation, which is funding set-asides allocated through the regional decision-making process that will encourage municipalities to work together on regional services. And of course, the regional services program includes express bus service, ADA service, and regional operations support. The first and one of the key services is the express service, for which we have been conducting a brief study update to better understand the market moving into Prop 479, as there has been significant changes to ridership, as well as the service dynamics of this kind of service. Before I start that, just wanted to briefly provide a reasoning for why express bus service has been a focus in the RSTIP. If you can see on your left, you'll notice that many of our region's freeways will experience very, very significant traffic volume, with many core freeway segments experiencing more than 300,000 average daily trips, with many other core freeways experiencing more than 200,000. As a result, new roadway capacity improvements alone will not significantly improve mobility. For meaningful improvements, we need to consider all modal options. In order to invest efficiently, given funding constraints, we need to focus on the most cost-effective methods for achieving that congestion reduction. We believe express service may provide a potential benefit there, especially in the long run. However, in the short term, express bus has experienced some significant challenges. Due to COVID-19, we saw a 91.4% reduction in ridership from 2019 to 2020. And in 2024, we've only recovered about 27.5% of ridership compared to 2019. In order to better understand the path forward, we conducted a study update as part of the Prop 479 TLCP development efforts to better understand the market, as well as potential scenarios for implementation of express bus service in Prop 479. First, we conducted a market assessment to update the 2020 study to reflect current and future demand for express service. We then conducted a scenario analysis to better test different potential service scenarios and validate performance on key corridors. And then finally, we identified some top performing corridors from the scenario modeling for future evaluation. A few scenarios we've tested that performed well is we found that pretty much all corridors serving downtown Phoenix continue to perform well, especially in the future in 2050 conditions. We also tested potential service to downtown Tempe as part of our planning efforts, finding that while service levels and performance did vary pretty significantly between potential scenarios, we did find US 60 was a potentially performant service. And finally, the most significant shift, we explored potential express bus corridors, providing freeway-to-freeway connections instead of making a deviation to a central business district. We found that 3 of those corridors perform particularly well with this through-running service, including I-17, I-10 West, and US 60 when connected together. In the near term, we expect to maintain existing service levels and consider changes to maximize resources. One challenge that we've found when looking at this study is that many routes oftentimes duplicate along a given corridor. For example, we may have route A, B, and C. Something that we found is that we could potentially consolidate routes A, B, and C into a route ABC, allowing for an increased number of trips and potentially even cost savings after that increased level of trips, resulting in improved service levels and cost savings for the program. This is something that we'll evaluate in the future. While this study update primarily focused on identifying express bus markets and key performing corridors, the Valley Metro's bus network redesign or comprehensive operations analysis will identify specific recommendations as well as an implementation plan for near-term considerations. The remaining 2 elements of the regional services element of the Prop 479 TLCP are ADA service, which is regional funding applied to the strict federal definition of ADA service, which is trips within 3/4 of a mile of a fixed route service for an ADA eligible passenger that has been certified by Valley Metro. And the final segment of this program is the regional operations support, which is items that include safety and security, the regional call center, and activity support regional transit operations that are shared by all regional partners. The current status of the Prop 479 TLCP is that we have completed cost estimations and policy assumptions for the base allocation, express service, as well as regional operations support. We are currently working with Valley Metro and our partners and member agencies to finalize our ADA cost elements, which is a key cost element for us to be able to determine the total funding available for formula funding. When those funds have been determined, we'll allocate the balance of funding available to the formula funding program. So just wanted to walk the committee finally through brief next steps for the process. As you know, fiscal year 2026 includes both Prop 400 and Prop 479, with Prop 479 collections beginning in January. In order to simplify operations and management of the TLCP, transit operations supported by Prop 400 will remain funded through the totality of fiscal year 2026 under Prop 400 policies using Prop 479 funding. Implementation of the Prop 479 TLCP policies and program to begin in fiscal year 2026 upon approval of the fiscal year 2027 TLCP by Regional Council. In terms of near-term efforts for development of the program, we're going to continue working with Valley Metro and the Prop 479 TLCP Development Working Group to work out the remainder of the components of the Prop 479 TLCP, including completing the remaining updates to our programming process, including a new paratransit funding policy implementation effort. We will also kick off an assessment to update bus capital needs to maintain a state of good repair and update our programming process moving forward under Prop 479. And also, we will be providing periodic updates to our policy committees through spring of 2026 until full development of the Proposition 479 TLCP is complete and Regional Council approves that fiscal year 2027 TLCP. And with that, thank you, Chair Wilcox, members of the Transportation Review Committee, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Cole. Do any members have any questions or comments on the presentation?
Just one quick question. So when are you guys targeting the next TLCP working group meeting? I thought that we were going to do that in December, but haven't heard.
Yeah, well, I don't have the exact timing of it at this time. We're working to develop a timing of, we're working to set a time for that project, that meeting based on our remaining efforts to finalize those ADA cost estimates of Valley Metro. So hoping to have an update to you soon.
Any additional questions or comments from the membership? Hearing none, moving to item 11. Thank you, Cole. Are there any comments or announcements from the membership? Hearing none, the next meeting of the Transportation Review Committee will be on Thursday, January 22nd, 2026 at 10 o'clock a.m. With no further business, today's meeting is adjourned.